big complaint, and we're seeing this a lot currently, with tests going optional, standardized tests having lots of issues, that traits don't matter until and unless they're tested. Unless they're like social constructs, there's a lot of criticism here in intelligence in standardized testing. They can be used as a means of discrimination, like there's the debate about standardized tests. While standardized tests are great, and I know that Wake is a test-optional school, so that they do have some economic discrimination. People in higher SES tend to perform better, and that's for a lot of reasons, including just access to more resources. Like, I had the luxury of taking the test again, and my score shot up, I don't know, like 100 points or something. And I had that economic privilege. It was very helpful. That economic privilege helped kind of deal with my own kind of disability stuff that I irrationally refused to get my legally enforced, well, like ADA is a lovely thing, to get my extended time that I really should have used but didn't. So for me, it kind of canceled out, which was okay. I mean, I got here, so I'm doing okay. But standardized tests definitely don't help everyone the same way. On average, they're great. People who score higher tend to be smarter, tend to be more successful. But the argument is that they're more successful because that's what they were selected on. So, like, getting into Harvard requires that you have a good standardized test, but the fact that you did well on the test doesn't mean anything. It's only because Harvard used it to admit people that it became a useful thing. Like, so if you're admitted based on a score, that score then becomes predictive of your likelihood of getting admitted. So there becomes a positive association, even if there is no true effect. So there are other kinds of screening tests, especially with personality, and there's some interesting court cases going through now. The Harvard one, or was it Yale, that underrated Asian Americans on like personality aspects to assess personality and character, were essentially an informal method of racial quotas. Historically, it was to quote, well, no, I won't quote because I realize this is a video, to keep those from socially undesirable groups out of the system. And what was deemed socially undesirable at the time, so you have Jews were considered historically undesirable, and that's one reason why alumni preference was given. Also a reason why they did interviews to get face-to-face. Asian Americans have to get higher scores on tests in order to have the equal likelihood of getting admitted. You can see this in MCAT scores. There are good and bad reasons why this is done. It is really unfortunate. Personality has been used as a means of discrimination. There are also weird, really awful, problematic test questions that illustrate cultural bias. This one, it's still a really good illustration regardless of its provenance. I have not found the original source of this question. What I do know is that the earliest reference I can find is from 1987. So that means this test, if this test existed, it existed prior to 1987. The Education Testing Services has come a very long way, and College Board and all of those. And I actually have I have a colleague at one of the big testing companies, and he or she does really good work trying to incorporate personality into standardized tests. And it's hard because of all those, a lot of challenges. And there are also really badass statisticians trying to find ways to statistically detect, because not every question is as blatantly obvious. This question here is an analogy question, so you have to kind of match runner is to marathon as which of these, multiple choice. Envoy is to embassy, martyr is to massacre, oarsman is to regatta, referee is to tournament, horse is to stable. This question, according to these same sources, there were huge racial differences in how people got this answer right. According to a couple of sources that seem to at least be consistent. 53% of white respondents to this question got it correct, which is way higher than chance alone. That would be, you can eliminate all but 2. Now, only 22% of black respondents got this correct. That is slightly above chance. If someone were to randomly guess, they have a 1 in 5 chance of getting this question correct. Now I'm going to tell you what the answer is in my nice little illustration. This is a really famous question called the regatta question. The fact that there's a huge racial difference likely stems from the fact that, well, regatta is a really specialized term. And in the 80s, it's a really specialized thing that a lot of white country club members would be aware of what a regatta is. Most of the Ivy League have rowing teams. Regatta is a really culturally specific term. And a lot of these other ones either have like a religious connotation, like so martyr to massacre, that's going to favor people with religious exposure over those that don't. And so this has a lot of cultural aspect to it that you need to know. And you see this in lots of types of classes, even ones you don't even think about, like probability classes, where it's all about like decks of cards and dice rolls. What if you've never seen a deck of cards? It's possible. Why would you know that there are 52 cards in a deck? That there are 4 suites? 2 are red, 2 are black? That is cultural knowledge in a math class. And so those can be problematic. And most examples aren't this glaring, but it happens. So what is this question getting at? Is it measuring verbal reasoning? Is it measuring whiteness? Is it measuring exposure to country clubs? Now, being white and being exposed to a country club have a really strong overlap, especially historically. So, and SES, there's so many different ways that this question has some problems. Like, the SAT is really, really trying hard here. They mean well, they're really trying. Now, this one's unintended. Harvard, holistic admissions criteria. This happened in the like 1915 or so. Might even be 1914. It's a graduating class of Harvard. So Harvard College shifted from a raw top X% rule. I think it was top 7th% of like who they would admit, and they created these 5 pillars, including academic promise, personal quality. So this is supposed to be like the personality one. This is where there was like, oh, well, they have terrible personal qualities. And I saw this in an interview because they don't have the same color skin as me. Again, please don't over-interpret. I'm trying to give you the narrative of why someone would implicitly downrate. Now it's implicit. It used to be explicit. So personal qualities, health and athleticism, which is an ableist thing. Geographic distribution. Certain areas of the country are more demographically diverse than others. And Harvard parentage. So if your parents went to Harvard before the infestation, sarcasm, that Harvard started accidentally admitting people they didn't think fit the Harvard image. Well, they didn't accidentally admit women. My aunt was one of the first women admitted to Princeton. I don't have a t-shirt for them. I should. She did her master's in she did helicopter stuff. It's really cool and badass at MIT. So, but the Harvard parentage is another means of discrimination because it goes back to a different generation of people of Harvard. Before, the people that Harvard deemed undesirable came as a way to have more control over what their admitted class looked like. One other big chief concern in terms of potential problems is about being described by a set of scores as undignified and degrading. So there's lots of complaints, rightfully so, that standardized tests are strongly linked with socioeconomic status. I'm not going to get into the aspects here because it's more complicated. There's lots of weird stuff. I'm happy to talk to you guys about it in an office hour or one-on-one or whatever. But so the SAT has been criticized that it favors wealthy students. So what the SAT tried to do is give context to the score by making an adversity index. The goal was to address the criticism of the SAT. It was, quote, designed to place students' SAT scores in the context of their socioeconomic advantage or disadvantage. And so they started to publicize this initiative in May of 2019, and by the end of summer, they had abandoned it, even though it was well-meaning, about this adversity score. And part of it is it's a data quality problem. They were using census tract and school economic funding and stuff like that. They're trying, but it wasn't perfect. It's an SES score. It's not a broad adversity score. Like me, I would have fallen through this and been listed as the most advantaged. While in fact, I had enough setbacks and disability stuff. I'm grateful the advantage was there because it allowed me to get where I am. And I'm very aware of that privilege because had I not had that economic advantage, I would not have made it. I would not be a professor today because it helped balance out, and also my stupid stubbornness about using accommodations. I'm better at that now, but they tried, but it was this weird number that is pretty undignified and degrading. And also because of how it was measured, it would almost incentivize parents to, change the location of their second home. It could create gentrification, immediately. Because people would do this. They would rent, people will rent apartments in better school districts. Or whiter school districts. So they can live where the, nice big neighborhoods are with the, cheap property taxes. And then, have the tiny little things so they can take advantage of the better school system. Or, in this case, they would have shifted to change their location to a worse school system. Yeah, there's lots of responses to this potential criticism. I believe that the criticism is often overstated, not to the extent that the book paints it as it's totally understated, there are no problems, people just be hating on the tests because the haters. Traits aren't invented or constructed, they're discovered and measured. That one I think is pretty straightforward. That one I totally solidly agree with Thunder. They can be a good way to assess people. They're at least less explicitly biased in interviews. But they're not great. There are problems, the usefulness of a test is based on the quality of and the money you put into it. So here's what Thunder says. It's naive to view personality testing for hiring processes as undignified or unethical. I have included here a comic from back when phrenology was popular. This is the employment office, and it says servants wanted. And they are measuring the lumps on people's heads to decide whether they are worthy of being a servant in the big house. So, if your test is valid and reliable, then it is a good way to assess people. If your test is invalid or really unreliable, like phrenology with the head lumps, not a good use of testing. So essentially, if it's not misused, you'll be fine. Just be mindful and think about the implications of what your test is. This is why I have this whole spiel. Like, don't just naively accept the test. Think about it. Think about the questions. How could they be interpreted by different people?